Hello and welcome to yet another episode of the Back to the TARDIS podcast, the podcast where we take a look at every single episode of the 2005 revival of BBC's Doctor Who. I'm Jeff.
I'm Skylar.
And I'm Amber.
And this week we are discussing Series 6, Episodes 1 and 2, The Impossible Astronaut and Day of the Moon. This is the first two-part season opener, I think, since like the 80s.
First one in New Who.
Yeah, first one in New Who, and I think also the first time they actually went to for real America instead of just like shooting in like a car park somewhere and being like, "It's America, guys." Literally, fun fact, like the scenes that they shot at like supposedly like the base of the Statue of Liberty were a fucking like car park that they were like, "Hey, this looks like the base of the Statue of Liberty," and it's big enough that you don't have to see the actual statue part, so it fools you.
Yeah. I mean, if I remember correctly, they went on like a road trip around the U.S. doing all the scenes for this, or doing all the American episodes for this season, because there's a few, I think.
Yeah,
they go to everywhere except I think River is supposed to be in New York, and they didn't actually do that. They went to some British city for that, but like basically everywhere else is an actual American landscape. You can tell Doctor Who is like just blowing up in terms of like popularity and budget that they're able to do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think this was a couple years before we got into it, but I remember seeing the stuff afterwards. Like, shit was huge. Like, people were so hyped in the US because this was peak Tumblr era, like 2011 to 2013. Like, everyone on Tumblr is obsessed with Doctor Who, and everyone just like coming out and being like, "Holy shit, it's here. Matt Smith! Oh my god!"
Yeah. Peak Jasmine entertainment.
Yeah. So true.
Yeah. So we start off with this is like, I feel like when I think about like single scene of like them going a little bit too hard in the like, haha, he's unaware horny 11. It's this specific scene at the very start of the episode.
It started out rough for me.
Like,
how does the first episode start again? I can't remember.
It's the one where he's in like, I'm assuming like 16th century Britain, and he's hitting up someone's dress.
Yeah, that scene was definitely very like, come on. That was a very Moffat scene. I think the whole sequence after that is fine though. Like that specific bit was a little but like after that I thought the sequence was very fun.
Yeah.
There's a lot of little moments throughout that where I'm just like, okay, in Series 5 you get some moments of 11 horny and 11 is the guy who River just like steps on, but there were just like multiple of that through this arc. Even though I like it, I was just like, oh man, we're in for a rough series.
Yeah, definitely. It's like, yeah.
Okay, I'm just gonna say right off the bat, we really like this two-parter, and we're probably going to give it a very high score.
I don't think it's bad. I have issues with it, but it's fine.
Yeah, same here. It was never like, I never had a bad time. There were just moments where I was just like, okay, this isn't working for me. And there were other moments that said, this is setting something up that could be really cool. And then in my head, I'm like, wait a second, we know how that ends up, and it's not cool.
Yeah.
But like overall, like just this story, it's a very strong opener to a series. Like a very strong opener.
Yeah. So yeah, Amy and Rory get a letter in an envelope that's TARDIS blue, inviting them to go to Utah they meet up with River there, as well as the Doctor, who's wearing a hat, which is then, of course, immediately destroyed because Matt is not allowed to keep a hat ever.
Based.
Yeah, that was definitely one of the very step on me, mommy.
Yeah, yeah.
She shoots
there's one point where they just actually start like hard flirting in a way that is like just barely scraping the boundaries of what is allowed. Like I think it's in the second part, right before the gunfight breaks out, and it's just like, okay, calm down there a little.
You know, I had a brain blast the other day while I was thinking about this series, and I was like, you know what could have worked, like, for giving River Song more time, just River Song and the Doctor more time without sacrificing Amy and Rory? Like, just alternate universe, picture, instead of the 10 specials, like, you have the 10 specials, but then you also have just adventures with him and River.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that just fills out the character, because I don't know, we see her in series 5, but then all of a sudden we get her here, and it's like, even when the Doctor isn't like the future version that gets killed, spoiler alert, it's a lot.
Yeah. I definitely see that.
I definitely like the setup. Like the premise of this story is very good.
Yeah.
I know it goes off the rails later in the season, but if you're just taking it as this, I really like this episode, and we remember this two-parter very well, and this reminded me why, because it's just a very good two-parter.
Mm-hmm.
Not to be very like Tumblr on main, but it is like, unironically, it is kind of iconic. Just the imagery.
Yeah.
Used in a lot of like going to America for the first time, the astronaut, the actor from Supernatural that I can never remember his name.
I think he was in Firefly too.
Yes.
I think his name's like Mark Shepard or something.
Yes, that's it. Yeah, there's just a lot here that's good, despite everything that comes later.
Yeah. So yeah, the Doctor also mentions that he's 1103, and Amy's like, well, you were 908 last time we saw you, and I'm just thinking, oh boy, just wait until we get to fucking 12.
Yeah.
Where he's technically like 4 billion years old, if you think about it.
Yeah,
I don't count that though, because it was different versions.
Yeah.
Obligatory timeless child reference.
Still haven't seen the episode.
Good. Enjoy your position while well, I can't really say while it lasts. Yeah. So he mentions the moon landings in 1969, and then there's the astronaut that comes out of the lake, and it's like, yeah, the Doctor's dead, which, I don't know, even when I was a kid, I kind of felt like, well, no, he isn't. You can't convince me that he isn't, and the arc is going to be, how does he get out of it, not how does he die?
Yeah, I mean, it is definitely, like, a little unbelievable. Like, yeah, for sure, you're like, okay, how's he gonna get out of this? But at the same time, I feel like establishing something like that, it's not too bad. I mean, it's a little annoying, but it doesn't really detract too much for us, I'd say.
And also, I think that, well, there's two things. One, the fact that I do have the knowledge of hindsight, and I do know that the answer to how he gets out of it is fucking stupid. And the second thing is that I feel like it should have been more of an arc presence, as opposed to just, yeah, he dies at the beginning of the season, and there's silence presence in the mid-series finale and then in the actual series finale. Like, it feels like it needed more serialization than it got, because having watched some more of Series 6 at this point already, like, they kind of just fucking forget about it until the end of the series, basically. And even, like, they do the same with River's Song and Amy and Rory's Child, where they're like, hey, she's missing and we can't find her. And then Let's Kill Hitler happens, and then we don't talk about that at all. And then after that, they just don't, like, it's not brought up.
Yeah. I'll give Series 7 some credit, in that in the very first episode, they try to kind of address some of that trauma, because this is a really traumatic series.
Yeah, but Asylum of the Daleks also fucking sucks.
Hey, I didn't say they addressed it well. I said they addressed it. Point being, yeah, I agree. There's a lot of setup, and there's some seeds that are planted so well with, like, the past Doctor being, like, immediately suspicious of what's going on. Yeah. In my opinion, he should know that he's, like, gonna die right from the get-go. Don't have the companions tell him, but have him be smart enough to figure that out. They kind of go halfway with it, where he realizes something is up. We're getting too ahead again, but there's a lot of Moffat being like, oh, look, I'm so clever laying all these seeds here. And for the most part, like, within the vacuum of this two-parter, he is that clever. But in the scope of the whole series, like, nah, just kind of falls apart.
Yeah, definitely. I do like that, I don't, as has been mentioned, this is where River really starts to go off the rails this season. But I do like how her reaction to the past Doctor coming out of the restroom being like, this is cold even for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, River is good. And then I remember that she should remember more about this than she seems to let on that she does. But in the moment, it's good.
Yeah.
Also, question: Is this the diner that 12 visits after
he
loses his
Yes,
memory?
it is.
That's the whole
It is
point.
the exact same set.
Yeah, no, that's why it's so meaningful at the end, because you're like, whoa, it's the thing from the past. It's like the Moffat connections.
Okay, Tumblr Stan, shut up. Listen. I'm not gonna judge your sexual preference in British twink actors. You don't need to go off. It's fine. I can just, like, chill. So they land in the Oval Office. I have to say, I find it really funny how, like, Nixon in this episode is portrayed as, like, a cartoon clown man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, they just, like, in the second episode where they just pull him out repeatedly to basically unlock a door.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I definitely think they treated Nixon with all the respect he deserved.
Yeah.
It's I looked into the BTS stuff of this arc, and apparently Moffat, like, he knew he wanted the 69, like, moon landing setting, but he had to look up who the president was, and he was just like, oh man, it's one of the rubbish ones. he debated replacing it like he did with
implying there are good U.S. presidents.
Like, you know, rubbish ones to write for. But he debated using, like, a fake president, like, I think, like, President Winters in
President and totally not George Bush, guys, we swear.
Yeah, but then he was like, you know what? We can work with this. And honestly, they do a pretty good job. I know the actor they got to play him has, like, did Nixon portrayals before this episode.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I always like when Doctor Who does that. They're just like, okay, we'll get someone who knows what they're doing.
Yeah. No, I feel like it's like like I guess I can kind of see what he was initially thinking of. Okay, I might come up with one. But honestly, I don't think you can come up with a character of Richard Nixon that is more characterish than the man himself.
Yeah, pretty much.
Like, you can't really top that.
I want to say this is somehow actually one of the best, like, historical character writing in New Who, because, like, usually it's like, okay, I'm just gonna put out this hot take. I think they need to write shitty people as historical ones more often, because it's way more fun to just be like, oh god, it's Nixon, than like, oh my god, it's the epic British boy from White Boy Town who wrote the thing, and then just like spend an episode having just a British orgasm over a British white boy from the writing thing.
Look at that, Amy. It's Scrimlow McBimlow, the lovable Scrunko.
Yeah. And I think they handle him so well because, yeah, he is just like this bumbling dude who's like, oh, blah, 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 for the whole episode. And he basically just gets circles talked around him, and then they like drag him around to go unlock doors for them. Like, I think one of the funniest parts is just when they bring him to get him out of the Apollo 11 jam, and he's just like, fellas, like, this is one of my personal men, and I would appreciate it if you would look the other way this time. And just, they just make him into an absolute caricature, and it works because it portrays a historical person without making them into like a caricature of deference, while also like poking fun of just how he is. It's very well done.
My favorite part is the fucking when he's asking Canton, like, who do you want to marry anyways, or something, and he's like assuming it's like maybe like a mixed race girl or something like that, and he just says like he mentions the traditional masculine pronoun, and then he's just like, well, maybe times won't move that fast or something like that. It's like it
was maybe the moon's far enough for now.
Yeah, that's it. Fuck it. It was a dumb line, but I was just like, you know what? I appreciate the fact that he didn't pull out like a rainbow pride card and said Nixon ooh woo for gay rights. Like look, I just appreciate not going all Hamilton with this, okay?
Richard Nixon! Miku Binder Richard
I had the exact same thought. Oh my god. I hate that we all thought the exact same thing. No, but I definitely like how it subverts the expectations there, because he's like, is it maybe a black girl? And then he's like, well, I think I'm a little more liberal than they would have you believe. And then and it's sort of like, it plays on that expectation of like, oh, they're going to like totally do historical revisionism and make the people like less awful than they usually do. But then it actually like goes straight around that, and it's like, no, he was like, like, dude, it was the fucking 60s. What do you expect? Yeah.
On the subject of having historical figures who are portrayed as shitty people more often, I've said this before, but I'm saying this on the air because I want it to be heard. If there is not a part in the Ninth Doctor Adventures box set coming out from Big Finish in May 2021 where Nine meets Margaret Thatcher and spends 30 minutes swearing loudly at her, I want my money back, Nick Briggs.
Based. Back to the episode.
I still have the sinking feeling that if Margaret Thatcher does show up, she's not going to be treated poorly.
Oh my god, I just had the worst idea. A fucking 13 episode where she meets Margaret Thatcher and
girl power, girl power.
Says something about how we need strong women in the modern day. I don't know what that accent was. It wasn't British.
Listen. Chibnall may be a lib, but I don't think he's that bad. Unless the like.
I mean, we
unless they literally like force him to do it, I don't think he's gonna do that.
Okay, then I have a more realistic, horrible idea. What if they got Hillary Clinton in a 13 episode?
That maybe that could potentially happen.
I can just hear your like enthusiasm and will to live dropping with each
his smile and optimism gone.
They already fucking kind of did that though with like the second part of Spyfall, how she gets these like powerful like cool women from the past, and one of them is like a World War II spy. And one of them is like an inventor. But you know, more opportunities to virtue signal and not mean anything that you say, you know?
Yeah.
Stranger things have happened.
Yeah. Anyways. So, oh my god, I forgot that fucking Canton is introduced with like Nixon being like, "You were my second choice for this, Mr. Delaware," and Canton's like, "That's okay. You were my second choice for president."
Good line.
Fucking Good line. Murdered.
Who even ran against Nixon in?
I don't know.
68. Oh, that would have been Hubert. No, would that have been Humphrey? No.
Hold on. No, it's a Bob something, right?
I think it was the one who was like really progressive or something, and then just like lost by a lot.
Oh,
yeah, Hubert Humphrey. I was right the word. Okay. I was right the first time. Okay. Yeah, he was like one of the real progressives. He was like pretty progressive for the time, and then he lost to Nixon by a lot.
Yeah.
Unless he voted for George Wallace, but I don't think it was.
I don't think he did that. I don't think he did that.
Yeah, because the joke is that that his partner is black and gay, right? I mean, not the joke, but
So yeah, I love how he fucking like he just like parks in the Oval Office and is like, oh shit. Oops.
Yeah, that was such a good bit, because he's like, guys, he does that whole lead and like, guys, we got to be careful, you know, I'm gonna be sneaky for once. We're gonna really like take this seriously, go slow, sneak our way in, make sure we're not gonna mess anything up. You know, we're in the most powerful city in the most powerful country in the world. We gotta play this safe. Bam, he's in the Oval Office. It was a very good payoff.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, and like really you get the sense that Canton's whole thing is he just doesn't care about like the rest of the BS. So like everyone else is doing like the Secret Service things, and he's like, yeah, whatever, you're cool. Okay, so Amy goes to the restroom, and this is when we first really interact with the Silence. Here's the thing. The Silence, I understand why the Silence don't actually do that much in the episode, because the entire point is supposed to be that they have infiltrated the society to the point that they don't need to do anything much.
Yeah, pulling the strings.
But the problem is that I don't know if this is 45 or I guess an hour and a half syndrome in this case, or just because their writing priorities were in a different place. But it feels like both the times that I've watched this that they've just said, oh yeah, they're everywhere, without ever like really showing it. Like they just say, yeah, they're totally running everything from behind the scenes and are totally everywhere.
Yeah, it's you really needed more of them, and I know this isn't this episode's fault technically, but I just thought when the Silence like pulls out the electric powers and kills that one random lady, I'm just like so in the time of the Doctor, they explained that the Silence original purpose is to be like confessional priests, that you forget that you confess to them because that's useful somehow, and they also engineer those to have electricity powers of doom and death.
Yeah.
Like, it was just like what? I don't know. It felt like a very rare, like, what the fuck misstep for this episode. That is just like the fact that they can
because
play
they
with
had
your
to kill
mind.
someone on screen to establish their threat, but it's fucking lame. It's boring. It's so played out.
Yeah, the fact that they should play with your mind should be the main threat, and they just add that because flexing the budget.
Let me just go with, I mean, I guess I understand why they didn't do this, because it would probably be too dark for the setting, but use the post-hypnotic suggestion. They don't kill anyone. They just order people to do it, and then from their post-hypnotic suggestion, they do it.
Yeah.
That right there is scarier and more interesting than the fucking zappy lightning powers.
Yeah, that was definitely one of the weaker moments of the episode because it was just not very well animated. Like, literally, they have her, T-pose in the air just going, like...
Yeah. Also, why the hell, why did they even, it's the thing of, why did they even bother to kill her in the first place? I understand from a narrative perspective it is because they needed to establish them as a threat, but from a physical in-universe perspective, why? There's no point for it. It kind of goes against their MO because they don't usually do that unless they're a direct threat, which she pretty clearly fucking wasn't.
Yeah, it's sad because here's where some of the, if you actually start to think about it, the mystery kind of breaks down, because you're like, okay, so the Silence commands her to tell the Doctor, I assume, the fact that she's pregnant, and that's why it gets harder and harder for her to, hold that fact back. And then, for some reason, they have a kid dressed up as the astronaut, almost as if waiting for the Doctor to come here, as if they're trying to kill him now, even though they know they're going to kill him later, and there's a Silence in the future on the beach, even though supposedly they should all be dead on Earth, because whenever anybody sees them, they'll remember from that clip that they're supposed to kill all of them on sight. So it was here, bizarrely, that I was
the
just
Moffat
like, okay,
bullshit
what?
really kicks off.
Yeah, I was just like, it's the writing where it's just in the moment you're just like, holy fuck, this is so cool and atmospheric, and the brain connections are firing off. You're like, oh, this connects to that. But then when you sit back and realize it, you're just like, wait.
Even then, in the moment, it's entertaining, but I don't even really get the, thing. I'm always kind of thinking this is kind of stupid and contrived. And it's entertaining in the moment, sure, but otherwise it's just kind of like, So, yeah. They go to a warehouse in Florida. I will say one thing that I was actually like, oh yeah, that was really cool that this episode did, is the scene where River and Rory have a talk, because it's really the only time that actually happens.
Yeah.
And it's this is the actually good River.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
as opposed to the annoying one.
I get a feeling, and again, this would have been so much better with payoff, and if they didn't constantly make her being a psychopath a joke, but the being aggressively horny with a smirk, and just having this personality that would catch the Doctor off guard because for some reason that works. If there was more of a clear delineation between that and the River we see with that moment with Rory, I would buy that there's a lot more trauma and complexity to this character rather than just inconsistent writing, which is what it comes off as.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So yeah, our cliffhanger is Amy revealing to the doctor that she's pregnant and then shooting at the astronaut suit, which is revealed to have a girl in it. It's like, oh god, I do like how Day of the Moon starts, where it's kind of like a fake out where you think Canton is hunting them all down, but in actuality he's just taking them into this perfect prison where they can actually effectively hide from the silence. I do think, I think that that's a very effective opening.
Yeah, that was an opening. That's like probably the opening we most clearly remember. Yeah. Because it's just very well executed. I would argue it's like one of, if not the best opening of any episode.
I will say I can see like the episodes being a week apart would kind of help this, because watching it back to back, it's like you just see that, and then watching this right next to it, there's a time jump, and it took me like not a long time, but a second to be like, oh yeah, this is how it starts. Whereas if it was like watching it as it was coming out, if there was a week, I'd be like, oh okay, there's a time jump. Like it isn't bad. It's just like something that I was just like, oh yeah, this is how this starts.
Yeah. And they're all shot and put in a body bag by Canton, except for River, who fucking stupidly jumps off a building.
Just River song things.
And, like, even if she's like, yeah, I knew you'd catch me or whatever, or, like, the whole, like, thing where, the thing where she fucking it's just like, even if like he opens the doors to the swimming pool and she miraculously manages to not clip anything on the way down, it's like you've fallen enough distance that's going to kill you. God damn it, River. This is the first time we see fucking 11 with a beard, which just, I'm sorry, it always looks weird.
It's apparently a glue-on, like, fake. I mean, people probably knew
that doesn't surprise me, because, like, he doesn't seem like the type that could, like, really grow a beard like that, at least not at the age that he's at. This episode, they introduce the thing of the nano recorder, where it's like you activate it and you talk about what you saw, so we get an actual record of the silence. Canton and Amy go to this creepy orphanage, which I will say this part's definitely really good.
Mm-hmm.
Like the orphanage stuff is solid, and like good Moffat horror stuff. Meanwhile, 11 gets in trouble because he's fiddling with Apollo 11, and this starts the trend of bringing the fucking president of the United States out to unlock a door. Like, they literally just fucking parade him around. It's so funny.
Yeah, they do it first to get out of the Apollo 11 thing, and then to like explain why they were in the thing for like several days.
Yeah.
And I like how nobody questions like how the president got into there.
Yeah.
They're just like, yeah, okay. Yeah, that's Nixon for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah, also the gag of Rory, who, and like, not gonna lie, Rory in the fucking suit with the brow line glasses that are like very much like the glasses that I actually wear. That's a good fit, man. But yeah, no, my favorite gag is like one that like I don't know if a lot of people would necessarily get, but when he says like America salutes you and salutes, he does the fucking British salute and not the American salute.
Arthur Darvill is a treasure.
Yeah. We get the first appearance of Madame Kovarian, only credited at this point as Eye Patch Lady. Hey, it's good here. This is about the only place that it's good. But it's good here.
Yeah.
Amy gets captured. Canton totally fucking like ices one of them. I do like that they like this is like really one of the poster childs for like I mentioned that like they do the thing where they're like it seems like every time it seems like that love triangle like starts back up again, they pretty much like within the same episode immediately shut it back down. It's like, no, it's Rory. It is always Rory. Because they definitely do that here.
Don't they? It's been a while, but like when they do the River is like part Time Lord, which is stupid for like 15 reasons, but when they do that reveal, like 11 kind of looks worried, as if for a second he's worried that the kid is his, and then she's like, "No, you idiot! They had sex on your time machine." Like,
which is fucking stupid.
Yeah, especially, and this. Credit to the Timeless Child for actually making something stupid that I didn't like, but it's just like, okay, so to get regeneration powers, all you need to do is time travel, and yet they needed to extract it from the Doctor's DNA the first time they did it. Like, it was, I was just like, okay, yeah, now this plot makes even less sense, and this one time I don't care, because it was already stupid.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. So... So yeah, Canton takes a phone of the captured, takes a video of the captured injured Silence on Amy's phone, which is where he says the fucking "you should kill us all on sight" thing. I honestly like, and then they broadcast it on the Apollo 11 landing. Oh wait, right first. They go into the Silence base, and 11 comments that he's seen it before because it's just straight up the fucking set from the Lodger. It's the same set, and he even like acknowledges that it is the same set. Oh yeah, this is where River and 11 have the weird like most like horniest that they can get away with interaction, and it's like, okay, fucking chill, dude.
It's really fucking like, I'm sorry, I can get the Doctor kind of, well, I actually can't, but I can get him like being into like a bad girl, but the fact that it's like 9 and 10 were like sweet to Rose, and here 11 is just like, oh yeah, you know, I shouldn't like that she like murders people with her space gun, but I kind of do. I'm just
I don't
where
like
the
how
fuck
horny
did this
it
come
is.
from?
Like it doesn't feel like in character because like I feel like he's I feel like he feels very Ace at points.
Yeah. Again,
and it makes like these moments like kind of weird.
If there had just been more time, either in Series 5 or in like a separate thing where it's just like we just got to know the Doctor and River's dynamic and actually felt like we understood what 10 or 11's feelings towards River were, because the only Doctor I can buy ever having feelings for River is 12, and they only even met once, and that's sad that I can believe that more than 11 or 10.
Well, again, as mentioned, Peter Capaldi can carry pretty much everything on his glorious Scottish shoulders.
Yes.
But yeah. So yeah, and 11 basically unveils his like, aha, I defeated you all plan by implanting this memory in the consciousness of the public. And I like the idea of like, yes, when you think about it, like that is 100% a clip that pretty much everybody will see, or at least most of the population that they will not be able to effectively control the human race anymore. But on the other hand, wow, that's kind of violent for the
yeah.
Like yeah, you could make the idea of like, yeah, I knew they'd surrender and run, so it's fine, but that could potentially be genocidal.
Yeah.
Like there's enough margin for error there.
And it's not like this happens once. Like, should the Silence, for whatever reason, think, oh, we can retake the humans this time, like, 51st century, they're still gonna get, like, massacred.
Yeah.
It's one of those things where it's like, well, I guess this fits the Doctor's sense of karmic justice, because he didn't make the Silence say that. You could just be like, oh, it's a taste of their own medicine, tee-hee-hee. But it's like, it's converting, like, the entire human species into an army for this like one specific niche case. I was just like, yeah, it's clever, but damn, dude.
Yeah.
I will say, I think this season is the start of like just to comment on something related. This season is definitely the start of the like really leaning into the guns bad stuff almost, because like not, I don't think it's fully there yet, but it definitely like the jokes about Americans and guns run a lot through this two-parter. Like first you have the scene where they show up in the Oval Office and you just have all the Secret Service agents like pointing them back and forth repeatedly. I think Amy even makes a joke about they're Americans.
I think Guns Bad was already pretty heavy in Tenet era.
Okay, that's fair, but just like it was very noticeable in this two-parter, or at the very least, the jokes about Americans having guns came up a lot. Because then at the end, like literally, a big part of the thing in the ending sequence is just like, yeah, every American just has a fucking gun to pull out and shoot a Silence with.
Yeah. Also, I feel like there is another thing that I would say is that while Guns Bad was a thing in Tenet era, I feel like there is a qualifier about Guns Bad then, where you kind of get the sense that A, he's not perfect when he says Guns Bad, and while he says Guns Bad, like, he can do so much worse, and also, like, if he's pushed hard enough, he could use one, as is seen. He ends up not using it to actually injure a living being in End of Time, but he does end up picking one up, which is treated as like a, oh, this is serious kind of thing. Whereas, like, for example, with 13, it just kind of feels like Guns Bad because we said Guns Bad before.
Yeah, I think again, it's all about how inconsistent the writer base for Who is and how they get different people interpreting the same messages, because you can look at, like, 8... Not 8. What am I saying? You can look at 12 in Series 8 and be like the anti-soldier thing, and it's just like, oh, you should never, like, pick up arms or whatever the fuck. And then... But then, like, that gets dropped. I really think it's just, like, lately it's been really bad because Lib Chibnall and 13, but yeah,
and mainly because it's so straightforward. It's just Guns Bad, as opposed to, like, for example, like, I can think of an example where, like guns bad is used to like really interesting effect in a 7 episode where he's very much guns bad, but you get that in the sense of like because he can just like guns are so far beneath him, and also because instead of just saying don't use guns, he basically goads this person into like, oh, can you fucking do it? Can you fucking do it, you fucking bitch? I don't think you can fucking do it. Yeah. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention, it was really funny how there was the joke, the fucking joke earlier on where 11 was like, "All right, I need you to start recording everything that happens in this office."
Yeah, that was good.
Although I will say that kind of is a downside, because bold of this episode to assume that Nixon wasn't paranoid enough to do that already, because he absolutely was. That was kind of the point.
It's one of the few occasions where it's like there's kind of that trope in historical Doctor Who episodes that they'll like say something or do something that inspires the person, and it's usually like inspires them to do something amazing, whereas in this episode 11 is helping Nixon fuck himself over later.
Yeah. So yeah, there's the sequel hooks, or the arc hooks of them still not figuring it, like being like, well, we can't tell him about the fact that he's going to die, and then also the fact that the scanner on the TARDIS is vacillating between whether or not Amy is pregnant. And we also see a stinger of 6 months later, a girl coming out of the shadows in New York City and regenerating. Yeah, boy, that went bad place.
Can someone help me out? So this girl, how does she die? Because Amy misses her. Is it just that she's been like left there by the silence, and then she's like homeless and then starves and then dies?
But think this episode had thought put it?
Well, some of it did. I'm sorry. Yeah, it's just weird.
Correction, you think this arc had thought put into it as opposed to what just looked cool?
Yeah, looking back over it, it's just like, okay, so they raised this person to like hate the Doctor and be a psychopath, and yet it like kind of seems to not work and she rebels against it, but she's not, but then she escapes, but then she like gets back with them, and then Let's Kill Hitler happens, and then she's fine. That's just a recap for the folks in the back, and I'm just sitting here being like, what the fuck is this character?
Yeah. Absolutely. So yeah, anything else before we move on to ratings? All right. Yeah, it's fine. It's entertaining in the moment. I really think that a lot of the it really, it's fine, but in some ways it really starts to signify the trend of like flash over actual substance that is going to characterize the show for at least the next year or two. And it's very much like a sign of where things are starting to go wrong, even if I think overall the finished product is still pretty decent. So I'm gonna say I would give it like, I'm gonna go for a solid B. I think what holds it back from I think the inconsistencies and like problems that it has hold it back from being an absolute A for me.
Yeah, this was a neat arc. It's certainly unique in being the first New Who series opener to like be a 2-parter starter. And every Doctor since has had their second series start off with a 2-parter. So that's some interesting trivia.
And one of those was really good.
So true.
All right, you guys get to take a pick as to which one I'm talking about. Send your answers in on Twitter.
We know which one you're talking about. Anyways, I read some behind-the-scenes production info on this 2-parter that Stephen Moffat said something along the lines of that Series 5 was, like, wanting to assure the fans of the show that despite the, like, drastic change in production, that this was still the show they knew and loved. And that this series, he wanted to try something different and, like, really make it his own. And for better or for worse, I think he succeeded in making it his own. I think it's a shame that he seemed to think that what he was doing in Series 5 wasn't good enough, because if he had stayed the course with the mostly, like, character-focused but occasional, like, really creative stories in, like, an overall arc format, I think this could have beat Series 5 if he, like, maintained that course of action rather than whatever the fuck he did. And I know there's an asterisk with him also doing Sherlock. I know that. But at the end, the quality of both shows suffer. I haven't seen Sherlock personally, but I have friends who have, and they assure me that that's also true there. Within this story, there's a lot of promise. There's a lot of great acting. You can tell the scale of things has changed, for better or for worse. I certainly think that this time they balanced the style versus substance thing okay, but the fact that it's already on shaky ground, it's like, we know where this is going. Some of the dialogue is actually fun and clever and good. The stuff between River and the Doctor, and River in general, isn't all bad yet, though it's certainly starting to lean in that direction. The character of Canton Delaware III is such a treat to this episode, as is the character actor of Nixon. It's a solid period story. It's just a shame that the arc it's tied to kind of lets itself down on the back end of things. I'd give this a solid B. It has ambition. It has promise. Unfortunately, it doesn't live up to all of it.
Yeah.
So we really like this 2-parter. This is definitely one of our favorite Matt Smith episodes, and for sure, or like stories. And it's one we remembered from when we were a kid, and just, I don't know. There definitely are some flaws in this story, just in the Moffatisms and leaning a bit too much into stuff at some points, but I don't think they really matter to us that much, just because we enjoy the overall story of it enough that it sort of doesn't glare through as much, and we just sort of have a lot of fun with the whole thing and think it's very well put together, and we like the silence a lot, and we really like the characters and how they're used in this. And I definitely think you're right, it is less character driven and more plot driven here. And that can be a problem for us sometimes, and especially if it's overused. But just taking this episode in isolation, we really like it. There definitely are some flaws, but I don't think they really detract from the episode too much for us. So we'd probably give it a 9 out of 10.
All right. So yeah, next time we will be discussing The Curse of the Black Spot. Which, until then, you can follow the podcast on Twitter at B2TARDISPod. You can support us on Patreon for a number of benefits, like early access to episodes, the ability to listen in live to episodes being recorded, and potentially even the ability to guest star on an episode of your choosing. I'm Jeff. You can follow me on Twitter at WheatleyDL.
It's me, the silence, and you can follow me on Twitter at skyhigh9_5 for more quality content like you just heard.
And you can follow us at NessQuixotic, twitter.com.
And we will see you all next week.